Right, here's the first question, just calculating the wages of a small business. So, with the first part of this, you just want to go through adding up all the unique variable names. Okay, so you go through, right, standard wages, hourly rate, numbers of hours worked, overtime wages, we've already counted that, overtime hours, and total wages. So it's all the unique ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 6 unique variables that you're going to have. When it then comes down to actually creating your either pseudocode or programming language, you want to make sure that you're looking at what values you actually have to type into the program in order for it to calculate. Now, anything to the left of this equal sign, that's the result of a calculation. So if it's a result of a calculation, you're not actually expecting the user to type in the standard wages or overtime wages or total wages, because that's obviously something that is the result of you typing in what your hourly rate is, your numbers of hours worked, and your overtime hours. So there's actually only 3 values that you actually have to type into this program. The rest of it will be then making a calculation on the values you've typed in and then saving it into the other variable. So this is why we've received hourly rate, and I've just called that H rate just to fit it into the question, the wee box. So that's receive H rate. I'm thinking having that as a single from the keyboard. Receive N hours from keyboard and receive overtime hours from keyboard. So that is basically your number of hours, and that's your overtime hours. Now, a wee tip, if you can't remember when you use receive and you can't remember set and send, if you go through your other program, your other questions, you'll see some pseudocodes, and that might ring a bell. Okay, so if you look at previous questions or questions further on in the paper, you'll start seeing the words like set and receive, and there'll be no doubt there's another one the page after send. So there's no harm in having a wee quick look through the paper just to see the actual terminology when you're writing pseudocode. So we've taken in 3 inputs. We then, again, you're just essentially using these 3 calculations down here. So after we've taken in inputs, we then set your standard wages to your hourly rate times your normal hours worked, or number of hours worked, and then set your overtime wages to your hourly rate times your number of hours times 2, and then you set your total wages to just your standard wages plus overtime wages, and then we send total wages to display. So that's your inputs, that's your process, and that's your outputs, and that's generally how all the programs work. So that's your answer in pseudocode. Now, next question is they're just essentially asking you to take in a value, and it has to be between £10 and £22. Okay, so if you're making sure that the input is between 10 and 22, you're making sure that input's valid, and that's the type of algorithm it's called input validation. Now, if somebody typed in they got £15.45, well, that's just a normal pay. Okay, so that's normal test data. If it's out with, so if it's less than 10 or it's above 22, that's known as exceptional. And if it's right on the boundary, so if it's 10 or 22, that's called extreme. So that's why we've got 2 values for extreme. They give you 1, and that's extreme data. So that is data that is acceptable, it's just the lowest value. And the other end of the scale is £22, which is the most, but that's still extreme as well. So if it's out with the actual range, that's known as exceptional. Right, what we've got here is you receive a choice from the keyboard, and if it's less than A and it's above F, then you actually get told that there's an error and you have to re-enter. So what happens here, because if you do enter G, then this condition is obviously satisfied, i.e. the condition's made true, so an error message is displayed because the condition's true, and the user re-enters the choice, and that's your 2 marks there. Right, next wee question is just they're developing a game, and here is some bit of codes, and that's obviously to maybe move a wee paddle from left to right. And they're asking you identify a line that contains a condition. So line that contains a condition, quite often they're used in loops or in if statements. And a condition is just maybe a variable has to equal a value or be less than a certain value. So that is line 28. So this is a simple condition because it doesn't have any logic in it. If we then look at one that a line that contains a value from an array, well, when we look at arrays have the square brackets with some information in it, okay? So that is line 26. So what actually happens is the value in this variable is equal to the value in this element of the sprite frames array. And the next one is accepts input values into the program. So to accept an input value, you're receiving data from a keyboard, which is line 27. So you don't necessarily really need to be aware of what the program is doing, right, precisely, but it's just really the keywords in terms of if you see that would be a variable, but when you see this square bracket with maybe a number or a word in it, that's an array. In terms like receive, that means it's being read in from the keyboard, so that this variable is accepting a value. So that's your answers to question 3. Right, if you look here, they spelt repeat wrong, so that's a syntax error. Right? And if you have a wee look at this, basically there's going to ask you to type in a value, and it keeps on asking until you've pressed either an A or an S. Okay, and the fact that that's a condition, that means it's a conditional loop, so it will keep on asking you for the value until this condition's been satisfied. Now, the reason why, and again, it'd have probably been better showing you a wee diagram of the game. I think it's like a wee paddle game. If you press A, it'll probably go this way, and if you press S, the paddle will probably go this way, I would imagine. So what we've got here is, they're asking you, well, why did they use an OR instead of an AND? Now, obviously, if you used an AND, they're actually expecting you to press the 2 keys at the same time, okay? Because once that happens, if it was an AND, it would come out of this loop. But the reason why it is an OR, because they're only expecting one of the keys to be pressed at the one time, okay? And obviously, once one of the keys is pressed, that's it, come out the loop, right? So that's why they've used an OR instead of an AND, right? Hey, this one is one that seems to be quite common, that they give you a wee bit of code down the left hand side and then they tell you how this actually works. So what we've got is we've got an example in which you've got repeat 6 times. Now it would be a shape that you're generally drawn, and quite often if it has repeat, if you look at the number within the repeat, that quite often signifies how many sides this shape has. So you'd be really looking to draw a 6-sided shape here. If you think about, this might be the start point. It says move 100. It then turns 60 degrees, so turn 60, so that's where the 60 would be. And then again, it moves 100, and then it will turn 60 there, then it would move down, it would then turn 60. Okay, so you're really wanting to be making a 6-sided shape there. It can be a bit footery, but just take your time and draw it out, have it your restart point, and always refer back to this. Okay, but you'll see that's repeat 4 times, hence why it's a 4-sided shape. How you make this more readable? Well, you could use comments, use some indentation, some white spaces as well, and the type of loop. Now if we know the number of times it's to loop round, that's called a fixed loop, right? Because, and the word justify means you actually have to add a wee bit extra, not just name it, but say, and that's basically because the number of repeats is fixed at 6. It's also known as an unconditional loop, but fixed loop, because the number of times it's repeated is actually already known. Right, this one's actually easier than it looks. So it gives you a big screenshot of a table, talks about it's an airport, But it's this part is really the important part, because what we've got is just talking about the app. This information gets refreshed every 60 seconds, and if Rowan taps on a specific flight, it'll give you all the details. So they're really trying to ask you to decipher this information, but that's where most of the answer actually is. So they're saying, well, what part of this program actually produces this output? Is there a repetition? Well, the close here, it displays every 60 seconds, so obviously there's a repeat. Just like the previous one, it says repeat for 6 sides, essentially. So this repetition just basically, it's used just to repeat or refresh the app screen every 60 seconds. So that'll be where the repetition comes in. The selection one would be when the person selects a flight and it gives you the flight details. So just basically used when tapping a flight to display its details. So it's really about deciphering this bit of information and thinking what type of programming construct would be used. So a repetition construct would be used for this, and a selection construct would be used for the tapping. Don't just say tapping, right, because you actually need to explain a bit more detail about what this tapping would result in. And nearly done. So what we've got here is what contains a logic error. So remember, logic is when it's all ands, ors, and it's more rare, but it's not. So the error is going to appear on the line in which the piece of logic is, and essentially what you have to do to correct it, if the status is cancelled, then you set up the status, else you just say scheduled onto the screen. That's like a double negative, so status is cancelled, that's basically saying if status is not cancelled. So if it's not cancelled, it would be scheduled, so you'd actually need to remove this not, okay, for the rest of that to make sense. But these ones are a bit rarer. And last but not least, right, program doesn't really look good, doesn't make too much sense, and that's because it's not very readable. So you could add comments, use sensible variable names. We'll talk about variable names such as I, right? A bit of indentation, some white space as well. So that was your second software test.